That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody. In here again, because dogs are loud. And eventually I'm moving. So this and my bedroom won't be the background anymore. But as it goes, the wheel weaves as the wheel weaves. Today we are on book 3 of The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, The Dragon Reborn. And again, I want to be a big supporter. I want to be shouting from the rooftops how much I love The Wheel of Time. As it stands, though, I like it, but I don't love it. Nothing about it has really made me fall in love with this series yet. What is interesting about this book, which is quite crazy, is that Rand is kind of a background character in the story. He's still in it, of course, but we get very rarely do we get POVs from his perspective in this book. And you know, the times that we do get it, it's sparing. Most of his scenes in this book are from other people's perspectives, which I thought was kind of neat. Rand is clearly having a tough time, though, as he kind of accepted the fact that he is the Dragon Reborn. In the last book, there's very much this sense of madness overcoming Rand to an extent, in the sense that he dreams a lot, you know, and it gets to the point where, you know, and there's things actively messing with him. So what is actually real and what's actually not real, and that's stuff that keeps getting into his head. He also knows that as the Dragon Reborn, there are certain prophecies, certain things that are assumingly must happen, right? Including some of his friends and loved ones getting hurt, so he tries to stay away and be on his own. Perrin also gets a bit of love in here, but the biggest standout for me was Matt, because Matt has kind of been a nothing burger for the past 2 books. And this is the first time we really get to see him as a person. I mean, he was in the first book, he's in the second book, but he's just kind of the friend that hangs around, right? It's not until this book where we finally start to get a little bit more like personality and a bit more of like what's going on with him. And I'm excited to see where he might go in the future. I do have it spoiled in the sense of that many people consider him one of their favorites. So it'll be interesting to see where the stories go on from there. Part of the problem with this book, again, for me, is with these 3 books as a whole, is the repetitiveness of it all. You know, they will disperse, they will join up at the end, they will defeat Bezalmon again. You know, you do it once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me thrice, and it's like, what are we even doing anymore? Can we get some more substance and move on, please? So there's that. I also think the characterization, this has definitely seemed to be primarily a plot first, character second story so far. All the characters have character, they have personalities, but there's nothing really. Maybe you feel differently. Maybe you can tell me what you originally felt if you've read this series already, how you felt the very first time reading it. But, you know, I listen to Two to Ramble as well, fantastic YouTubers. Should definitely check out. And I'm somewhere in between Austin and I'm really mean. What's the other guy's name? I'm a fool. But glasses. No glasses. There's your shortened version of that. But basically, like, one person adores the series, the other person not too fond of it. but one's reading it for the first time, one's rereading it. And I know rereading it is going to have so much vastly more value than an initial read through, right? But as it stands, I don't know how you really love any of these characters on a first go around, at least this far in, because nobody really truly stands out. It is very much the. And it makes sense now why Robert Jordan would write some Conan books, because at least from the Conan books that I've read, with a few exceptions, it is just here's your Conan archetype, big, buff, and strong, not dumb. He's actually quite intelligent, but big, strong, hulking guy. Adventure, defeat the bad guy. Over. Rinse and repeat. New side characters, new places, maybe even a new villain, but the plot structure remains consistently the same, right? In a very similar way, that's how these characters feel. They feel like cartoons in the sense of like, you put on your Saturday morning cartoon. They have scenarios, they have events, they have things they go through, and then you tune back in next week and they're the exact same character. Now that's not absolutely true, and I want to be fair because this series, at least so far, definitely has had subtle growth. Like Rand in book 1 is not who he is right now. Same with Perrin. Matt, I didn't really know who Matt was, so this is the first time I can really say like I can't really say there's been character development because he's kind of just been there. There hasn't really been a character to develop that much. As it stands, he feels like a real person now, so that's something. Egwene, Nineveh, you're probably butchering that name, Elaine. I like them. Again, there's not a single character I dislike. I don't think any of these books are badly written or not good stories, but there's nothing with the oomph to get me emotionally invested as of yet. Now, I know The Shadow Rising is one of people's absolute favorites, so I'm hoping by that point I will eventually change my mind. But, Matt is dealing with some interesting things as he's now becoming a predominant character. Perrin is still dealing with the problems of the wolf urges within him. And Rand is dealing with the weight of it all, of being this messiah, this dragon reborn. So all that's pretty interesting. The weakest aspect to it all is just the repetitive nature of they're going to disperse for time, they'll join back up, and then of course they got to defeat Bezalon, however the fudge you say his name. To be fair, I think by the end of this book he's officially gone forever, but it is still a thing of we went through 3 books of this. Rinse and repeat, basically. I mean, there's subtle differences to each, what Rand's going through or what the scenario is. The last book we had the Horn of Valair, but at the end of the day, it's just more of the same. And I'm sorry, but if you, with how inspired the first book was, it was not this unique thing to get you immediately. I reviewed Malazan Book of the Fallen, right? Was Gardens of the Moon confusing? Yes, but was it already interesting from the get-go? Yes. Was it unique? Yes. I thought by book 1, a lot of those characters were nuanced and fleshed out, and they already had moments within that story that had me invested moving forward. And even if that book doesn't hit you, Dead House Gates comes out swinging with this emotional toll. Now, I understand that's not what this is going for, and this is from an older time, the mid to late 90s. If any of you have watched me review Star Wars, maybe you haven't, but in the 90s, what really made the EU was the Bantam era. Now, Bantam's just a licensing publisher, right? Right now, I don't know if it's still right now, but I know for the majority of the 2000s, the Star Wars books were under Del Rey's control. But in the 90s, it was Bantam, and this is what the EU fans dubbed the Bantam era. So in that era, you get things like the Thrawn trilogy, written by Timothy Zahn. You get the Jedi Academy trilogy by Kevin J. Anderson. And a bunch of other stories. X-Wing by Michael Stackpole and Aaron Olston. May he rest in peace. And many other authors like that within that time frame of, after episode 6. But when our heroes were from the movies are still relatively young. And those books are a lot more lighthearted. But I always felt like within those stories even that there was some form of character development to one character or another. But at the end of the day, Han, Luke, and Leia remain Han, Luke, and Leia. They don't really change, per se, right? I mean, they do change. They evolve, they grow. Like, Han becomes a dad. But it's still always Han. You just go, well, that makes sense for Han. As a father, that makes sense. These characters, they're not from a media that already exists. They're brand new. But I feel the books have failed to emotionally make me grasp to these characters, and I'm hoping as I continue through that will change. Despite my gripes, I am enjoying it, but I am not loving it, and I desperately want to love it. So maybe you can let me know what you felt about these characters the first time you went through it. And I'm failing to talk about the plot, and that's bad on me. But Rand's basically running off. He feels like he's a burden. He knows he has this thing he has to do. He doesn't want to hurt his friends, so he goes off to do it alone. There's this sword, kind of like the sword in the stone, that he is meant to pick up, that it goes searching for. And so ultimately, every other character by the end ends up coalescing with him at the very end of it. Again, it rinse and repeat, sort of the same structure as before. We do get some more interesting elements within that we'll talk about in spoilers, but by and large, we do get more of the White Tower, which is nice. A little bit more of that culture and what's going on with the Aes Sedai and stuff. But like I said, there's world building tidbits that are interesting. There's character moments that are interesting, but just nothing to really like. I like it, but there's nothing that's made me go, I'm a major fan yet, and I'm hoping that will change by book 4. But no matter what, I'm gonna finish this series. I'm gonna see it through because I already paid for it. So I certainly hope that my opinions can change around. I apologize if I was vague on the plot. I'm already reading book 4. I'm enjoying it a lot so far, a lot more than the past 3 books. But as that stands, it starts to make the previous book a little bit blurry in terms of what's been happening. So I guess that's my non-spoiler thoughts. I would really love to know what you guys thought of this book, though, especially your first time. I know on a reread, it's like a completely different experience, but maybe you can try to help me appreciate this book a bit more. But I'm going to get into spoilers if you don't want any of that. There's the door. So we open up with Boyer again and the whole religious faction that doesn't believe in the Dragon Reborn. And then we get to see Perrin and this girl Layla, who I believe was maybe in the previous book. I honestly don't remember. I'm going to be completely real, but she's around. We have Min again and Loyal. And I really like, even early on in the book, we have Rand's weight of responsibility and uncertainty. Because there's a lot about the prophecies that are kind of vague, right? But a lot of it's about destroying the world in order to save it. So all this stuff makes Rand really nervous and scared. Rand ends up bailing on everyone, though, because of everything he's seeing, he's getting really paranoid, and he just chooses to run off and kind of do things on his own. Min says that she's bound to Rand. One thing I thought was really cool, I don't think we've gotten too much of diversity in this series yet. I pretty much think, with a few exceptions, most of these characters are meant to be white or some variation of the form. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But the city of the White Tower that is settled in, there was specifically mentions of, different colors, different shades of people. So I thought that was very cool. People are apparently dying in the White Tower, which this does set up a pretty interesting little mystery happening here. And it very much reminded me of, I guess this would have happened first, but for those Harry Potter fans, book 2, The Chamber of Secrets, where we have the basilisks and people being frozen in the hallways and stuff, nobody knowing how, because this is in this school that's meant to be protected by magic and teachers that are supposed to be super powerful and protect these kids from this stuff, but then it happens anyway. So here we have the Aes Sedai, this is the safest place you're supposed to be, and yet people are falling dead and no one knows why. So I thought that was a nice little thing there. Not nice, it sucks, but it was a good storytelling beat. Also, there was talk of the Emerald maybe not healing Matt. And again, it's just a bit of a. They do end up doing it because Matt gets healed. But this does. People always say this, and I listen to reviews or overviews online, and I don't really feel it most of the time. And I assume as the series progresses, it'll be even more so. But they always talk about like there being diverse cultures and peoples, and this person may want one thing with the Dragon Reborn, this person may want another. But this is just another example of like even within the White Tower, which is a relatively small place in compared to the world as a whole, but different people may have different motivations within there alone. In terms of like, well, why might they not heal Matt? They do end up doing it. It's an interesting thing to talk about. Well, they don't end up doing it, I should say, because Elaine, Egwene, and Nenevive, or how I can't say her name, they plan to combine their powers and heal Matt, because they're three both very powerful magic users. But Matt does get healed, and so we have Matt back because he got hurt in the last story. Well, he's been hurt, but forget what we're moving on. But Matt gets to talk with Celine again. She's back. Still don't really know what's up with her, but she has a chat with Matt. And she also tries to kind of entice him to go do some stuff. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know if I'm supposed to, if I'm just a dummy. But I don't get her whole deal yet. Maybe we will eventually. Also, something interesting. Book 2, Matt blew the horn of the lair. So until he dies, only Matt can summon dead armies. Even if someone were to steal the horn of a lair, they could do nothing with it unless Matt is dead, which I thought was pretty interesting. We also get a lot more with the World of Dreams here, which seems to be a separate sort of plane, sort of kind of. Again, it's kind of vague. I'm sure later books will dive into this more, but I do know already, slight spoiler because of Daniel Green on YouTube. He talked about the magic system of, the wheel time, and you have the more hard science of it, which is pretty much the normal that we see day to day. But in this other realm, this kind of dream aspect realm, is where it's more soft, where you can be more playful with the magic system. So I think that is cool. And in this dreamland, Egwene gets to talk to Rand, which is pretty cool. Because Rand senses that. But again, a part of this which also helps with the whole Rand kind of losing it and the weight of everything and the pressures of, because he knows that there's dark forces trying to manipulate him as well, and he's so paranoid and lost as to what's real and what's not real. He doesn't know if he can trust that the Egwene he's seeing in his dream is actually real or not, so he starts freaking out even more, and it just really shows his mental state is not all there. Yeah, this is also where we get the calendar thing, which is the sword that Rand is meant to acquire. Also, at the time of recording this, season 4 or 3 or whatever it was of the Wheel of Time is the last season we'll ever get, because apparently Wheel of Time was canceled, which I'm sorry to all the Wheel of Time fans. I just thought I'd mention that. And I mean, most of them didn't like it from what I hear, but I wish there would have been a good show to carry on these stories. But one thing that I like about Matt that we're already getting here is he is kind of the jester, right? Or the drunken man, whatever you call it, that fighting technique or whatever from that one movie. Or I don't know if that's actually meant to be a real fighting technique, but Matt likes to play the fool. Matt is fairly intelligent, maybe not the most intelligent person, but he's got some street smarts. But he'll actively act stupid, which works in his favor, and he does it on purpose, because we have a little thought bubble of him talking about that. I thought that was really cool. Matt and Tom get a reunion, and actually for the first time, I have to preference this in case it's the first review of mine you're watching. I say this fairly often. I am not a big fan of action. I struggle to visualize action in the written form. I don't know why. Dialogue, world building, politics, give me all that. I'll eat that up. But give me some action and I might be a bit lost. I'll check to make sure nobody dies or anything important happens. But as for the fight itself, I'm not really visualizing it. It's more just like a description than actually seeing it happen in my mind's eye. And that's more of a me problem than anybody else's problem. Only a few authors managed to do that. But in this very first scene where two men are trying to sneak up on Tom and Matt gets this like stick or something and starts killing these two men. I visualized all that and I thought that was fantastic. Which is also the first time Matt has had to kill anyone. So, but yeah, Bezalman returns yet again. We also learn, I don't think it really matters for this book, maybe it'll matter for a future book, but there's a Forsaken that rules Ilion. I also like, there's this, I don't know how much this will matter moving forward, but it seems to be something with a dagger that was inside of him and whatever else is going on with him that, or if this is just the thing he's always had. I'm not really sure what it's meant, but randomness is how Matt often wins, whether it be games or circumstances that he's in or whatever. Randomness is his friend, which is interesting for the wheel pattern, which is meant to be like this thing that's kind of meticulously like crafted. You can't really subvert it, but the randomness of life is how Matt always seems to win, which I think is interesting for his character. And I don't know if that's like specifically like a power imbued within him or if it's just something that just happens to be something he's always been able to. I'm not exactly sure where that's going, but it does have me intrigued. Hold on. Sorry. My animal spooked me. Mother Gwenna and Matt have this scene together, which I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember it being a very good like dialogue scene, which is why I put it down. And the problem with me, I've been reading these books so slow, and so when it actually comes down to review them, I find it hard to remember the specific reasons I wrote down my notes, which is a little annoying. We also have characters that will matter for future books, I know for certain. So I wrote down their names. Rorak, Sander, who are people of the Ale, which will matter much more for next book, so I wrote them down here. But yeah, and then we get to the end. I can't care. The repetitiveness of this series so far. Bezalman returns, Rand must fight him again. He fights him, he defeats him for the third time, and all this is this big grand triumphant ending, and I just can't care. I don't care. I'm sorry, I don't care. This is now the third time I've had to see this man fight Rand. I don't care. Now, to be fair, this is meant to be the final time. And they even say Bezalman is truly gone. He's dead forever. He was just mortal. He was just human. He was not the Dark One. He was just a vessel for the Dark One's influence to come through. The Dark One is still trapped. But Bezalman was a Forsaken that basically the Dark One kind of like possessed or half possessed in order to make the Forsaken a stronger opponent. But by and large, it wasn't the Dark Lord's full potential either. So for 3 books, we've been fighting the Dark One, but just a body housing him is actually just one of his followers that is now officially dead forever. And also there's only 4 seals remaining until the Dark One is free, which is the last kind of thing we learned in this book. But again, I can't put it in me to care after I've gone through this 3 separate times. They don't even make it that much different to make it that much more interesting. They don't do much with it. One, Bezalman is just kind of a one-note villain, which not every villain has to be super nuanced and complex or anything. I'm all for having, the standard villain type. And I know there probably will be a bit more nuance moving forward. I mean, it's okay to have a big bad that's just bad for the sake of being bad. But that's only if you don't drag it out. At least with the Dark One, like the actual villain that will be, I'm sure, at book 14, we don't see him that much. right? He'll say stuff here and there, but Rand's not defeating him every book, because then that would make him sucky. By having this guy be the antagonist for 3 books and saying, oh yes, he's defeated triumphantly forever by the end of every book, when that's not the case, like, don't even do that. Like, why even, like, beat him? Just, like, have Rand run away then. Have Rand run away twice, have them get out of the situation, and only officially, truly defeat this vessel by the 3rd book. Then it'd be more palatable. But as it stands, every single book, Rand has utterly annihilated him by the end of it. So then we get to this book, and I'm meant to care that he's finally dead? I don't. It's just the repetitiveness of these 3 books. As I said, I started book 4, and it feels a lot different. So I'm hoping by the end of that book, I'll have a much more positive review for you. But as it stands, these 3 books can only be classified by me on a first read as okay. And I really hope that the rest of the series just flips me around on that. It just becomes more unique and doesn't use the same structure. As I said, this was a little bit different in the sense that Rand was not the main... He's the main protagonist, but he was not... We didn't really get his POV that much, and that was a nice change. We got to see more how other people reacted to him. But I'm just... I needed to get different. I needed to get more unique. I need it to give me that oomph, and I have not felt it yet, and I'm hoping that will change soon. And I'm sure on a reread, these books will be much, much more palatable to me. When I know their endgame, when I know who they will become, and when I know the story as a whole, I can probably appreciate the things that are set up here, and the more ignorance and less well-defined roles of these characters in these books. But I'm not on a reread. This is my first time, so I have to be honest about how I felt on the first go-around. But maybe your comments in the comment section below will completely change my mind on that. And I hope you can. I would love to change my mind on this book. As it stands, I'm already a few chapters into Shadow Rising, and I'm loving it. So I'll let you know how I feel about that next week. Probably won't be next week for me. I've been reading these books rather slow, which I read Malazan pretty quickly. I'm not as into it, so it's taking me longer. But again, I know how many people love this series. I know how many people love this series. I want to love it as much as you do. I want to dissect it. I want to analyze it. As it stands, when you see me just summarizing stuff, and I don't have too much to say, because there are times where I'll go really in depth with something, and I'll really passionately talk about it, but I have to really passionately care about it. And I just don't. So I find it hard to find things to talk about outside of what actually happened. And there's no real big character moments for me to discuss either, so it's just kind of... it's hard for me. But I hope you'll stick with me. I know people love this series. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to say your series sucks. I haven't finished it. I'm just being honest with these 3 books, how I feel so far. But I know the Shadow Rising is considered one of the best. So hopefully by the end of next week, you will hear me tell you all that I'm officially a Wheel of Time fan. I certainly hope so. But until next time, the wheel weaves as the wheel weaves. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.